In 4 deployments, Alex had accumulated 178 confirmed kills, a number that rarely crossed her mind, except during after-action reports. To her, each squeeze of the trigger wasn't about taking a life, but about saving those of her fellow Rangers. Today, that number was about to increase significantly. The mission had started 48 hours earlier, when intelligence indicated a high-value target was operating in Mahmoudia, a city 30 kilometers south of Baghdad. Hamid al-Shamari, an insurgent cell leader responsible for coordinating IED attacks against coalition forces, had been tracked to the industrial district. What intelligence had failed to mention, or perhaps did not know, was that al-Shamari wasn't merely another insurgent commander. He was former Iraqi Republican Guard trained by CIA operatives during the Iran-Iraq War of the 1980s. A professional soldier turned deadly enemy. The Ranger Patrol, 12 men under Sergeant First Class Michael Harrison, had been tasked with conducting reconnaissance in the industrial district, gathering intelligence on insurgent safe houses and weapons caches. Harrison was 61, a living legend within the regiment. Having served in Somalia, Panama, and Kuwait, he'd retired after Desert Storm only to re-enlist following the September 11th attacks. He was old enough to be the father of most men in his unit, but his experience was invaluable in a war that defied conventional tactics. Alex had been assigned as their long-range overwatch, a standard practice for patrols in hostile urban areas. While the Rangers moved through the city on foot, she would position herself outside the urban terrain with clear sight lines providing early warning and precision fire support if needed. What none of them knew was that al-Shamari had been tipped off. Someone had compromised their mission. They came in small groups of 2 or 3, positioning themselves in buildings surrounding the abandoned compound, setting up weapons, preparing firing positions. By 800 hours, Alex had counted 32 insurgents armed with AK-47s, PKM machine guns, RPG-7 rocket launchers, and what looked like a Soviet-era Dragunov sniper rifle. The precision of their movements, the way they established fields of fire with overlapping coverage, this was military training in action. Then she saw him. Through the thermal shimmer rising from the warming desert, Alex caught a glimpse of a figure directing the others. Tall, with the bearing of a professional soldier, he moved with the confidence of command. She adjusted her scope, focusing on his face. "Shit," she whispered to herself. It wasn't just al-Shamari. There was someone else, someone she recognized from intelligence briefings. "I've got point." The Rangers resumed their advance, now moving with heightened wariness. They reached the compound's southern gate at 0830 hours, seeking the defensible position where they planned to conduct their scheduled communications check with headquarters. Inside the walls, the compound appeared abandoned concrete buildings surrounding a central courtyard, rusted machinery scattered around what had once been a manufacturing facility. Harrison directed his men to establish a perimeter while he attempted to make contact with base. The insurgents waited with professional discipline, letting all 12 Rangers enter the compound before triggering the ambush. The first RPG came from the northern building, striking the compound wall and showering the Rangers with concrete fragments. Then every insurgent position opened fire simultaneously, a coordinated storm of bullets and rockets that transformed the compound into a killing zone. From her position on the ridge, Alex watched in helpless frustration as the ambush unfolded. The radio crackled to life with Harrison's desperate transmission. "Contact multiple hostiles." She was already swinging her rifle toward the northern building where the RPG had originated. Through her scope, she located the gunner, preparing to fire a second rocket. At 520 meters with a light crosswind, she made a minute adjustment to her aim. Inhale, stall, pause. Exhale halfway. Hold. The M110 bucked against her shoulder. Through her scope, she watched the RPG gunner crumple before he could launch his weapon. Without pause, she transitioned to her next target, a PKM machine gunner on the rooftop who was raking the Ranger's position with sustained fire. The distance was 530 meters. She compensated for the slight elevation change, controlled her breathing, and fired. The PKM fell silent as its operator collapsed beside his weapon, 2 down in less than 15 seconds. Alex methodically worked through her target priority list, heavy weapons first, then command and control, then anyone directly threatening the Rangers. Each shot was deliberate, precise, the product of thousands of hours of training and combat experience. Third target, insurgent commander, on the western building, rooftop, 540 meters, directing fighters with hand signals and radio. Her round caught him high in the chest. He dropped the radio falling from his hand. Fourth target, PKM gunner, southern position, 505 meters. Down. Fifth target, Dragunov sniper on the northeastern roof, 610 meters, the most dangerous threat to both Rangers and to Alex herself. She spotted him through thermal shimmer, took extra time to ensure perfect shot placement, and fired. The enemy sniper crumpled behind his rifle. 5 down in under 2 minutes. In the compound, Harrison coordinated his team's defense with the calm efficiency that had earned him legendary status within the regiment. His face was weathered from years of desert deployments, his movements economical and precise even under fire. Second team suppressed that eastern building, he shouted over the gunfire, his voice carrying the authority of experience. First team prepare smoke for withdrawal. Staff Sergeant Dean Matthews, 27 from Montana, the team's breacher and demolitions expert, pointed at the northern building. Sergeant, those PKM positions are going quiet. Something's different. His calm under fire came from years of high-pressure explosive work where one mistake meant death. Harrison noticed it too. The sustained fire from several key positions had suddenly ceased. Nobody from their position had engaged those targets. Someone's taking out their heavy weapons, Harrison said, realization dawning. Must be Reynolds. He keyed his radio. Any friendly sniper elements on our position? Alex's calm voice came back through the static. Overwatch 7. I have your position, Ranger 2-4. Continue engaging targets in your immediate area. I'm clearing the outer perimeter. Harrison felt a surge of hope. Overwatch 7, we have 12 Rangers pinned in Compound Delta. Multiple casualties. Need to extract ASAP. Roger 2-4. I'm working the problem. Keep your heads down. Colonel Nathaniel Old Wolf Wilson sat in the Tactical Operations Center at Fobihi Kalsu, listening to the radio traffic with growing concern. At 62, with silver hair cropped in the same military cut he'd worn for 40 years, he commanded respect with just his presence. He'd served with Alex's father in Desert Storm, had watched her grow up, and had fought for her acceptance into Ranger School, when the brass had doubts. What's the QRF status? He demanded, his voice cutting through the controlled chaos of the TOC. Major Lisa Hendricks, the operations officer, responded immediately. 4 minutes out from mounting, sir. ETA to contact point, approximately 20 minutes. Wilson frowned. Reynolds is alone out there providing overwatch. Get me a drone feed on her position and the compound. As the staff worked to comply, Wilson reflected on the young woman he'd helped mentor. Alexandra Reynolds was the finest sniper he'd ever seen, better even than her father, who had been his spotter in the Gulf. When she'd applied for Ranger School, he'd personally vouched for her abilities against significant resistance. You can't send a woman into regiment, they'd told him. It's not just about physical standards. It's about unit cohesion, combat effectiveness. Wilson had silenced them with a single sentence. She shoots better than any of you, and she's James Reynolds' daughter. Now, as he watched the situation unfolding in Mamudia, he prayed his faith in her would be justified. 12 Rangers were trapped, and Alex was their only hope until the QRF arrived. Alex continued her systematic dismantling of the ambush. Her training had programmed her to prioritize threats, heavy weapons first, then leadership, then anyone threatening friendly forces. Sixth target, RPG team, northern building, 530 meters. Gunner down, loader fled without the weapon. Seventh target, fighter with AK-47, attempting to flank the compound from the east, 445 meters. Down before he reached his position. Eighth target, PKM gunner, who'd repositioned to the southern building, 525 meters. Down. But the insurgents weren't giving up. Having realized a sniper was destroying their ambush, several fighters began trying to locate Alex's position. Bullets started hitting rocks around her ridge, kicking up dust and stone chips as they fired blind toward the high ground. Alex didn't flinch. She'd been under fire before. Incoming rounds cracked overhead or sparked off rocks, but her position was well chosen with excellent cover. She continued engaging targets with disciplined precision. Ninth target, fighter with binoculars on western roof, 555 meters, trying to spot her. She eliminated him before he could identify her exact location. 10th target, insurgent, attempting to move an RPG to a better firing position, 490 meters. Down. 11th target, fighter coordinating others via radio, 510 meters. Down. In the compound, Harrison was organizing a fighting withdrawal. The Rangers moved in coordinated teams, one group providing covering fire while another prepared to move. Classic infantry tactics executed under extreme pressure. Specialist James Collins, 22 from Texas, the youngest in the patrol and newest to regiment, was terrified but functioning. His training overrode the fear that threatened to freeze him. His hands shook slightly as he changed magazines, but he kept his rifle steady, firing controlled bursts at muzzle flashes in the buildings. "Pop smoke," Harrison ordered. White smoke grenades deployed, creating a screen between the Rangers and insurgent positions. The compound filled with swirling white clouds that obscured vision, but provided the Rangers cover to reposition. Alex watched the smoke billowing up from the compound and adjusted her tactics. The smoke made direct observation difficult, but she could still see muzzle flashes from insurgent positions outside the cloud. She continued engaging targets at the perimeter. 12th target fighter attempting to move closer to the compound under cover of smoke, 455 meters. She caught him between buildings. Down. 13th target PKM position that had relocated to northeastern building, 595 meters. Down. Harrison's voice crackled on the radio. Overwatch 7, we're preparing to move to the western wall for breach and extract. Can you suppress the western positions? Roger 2-4, I have clear lines on western building. Any enemy that shows themselves, I'll drop them. Understood. Moving in 30 seconds. Alex shifted her aim to the western building, scanning through her scope for targets. She spotted 3 insurgents repositioning on the roof, preparing to fire down at the Rangers' planned escape route. She engaged rapidly. 3 shots in 8 seconds, 3 targets down. Western roof clear, Alex transmitted. You're good to move. The Rangers advanced through the smoke toward the western wall, moving in textbook fire and maneuver formations. Matthew's machine gun team laid down suppressive fire while assault teams bounded forward in 3 to 5 second rushes. Alex covered their movement, her crosshairs tracking across rooftops and windows looking for any threat. Movement at 520 meters, insurgent with RPG appearing in a window. She fired before he could aim. Down. Movement at 485 meters, fighter trying to get angle on the moving Rangers. Down before he could fire. The Rangers reached the western wall. Matthews, the team's breacher, placed a charge on the wall while others provided security. His hands were steady as he set the date cord muscle memory from dozens of breaches taking over. Fire in the hole, he called, and the team took cover. The explosion blew a hole large enough for men to pass through single file. Breaching, Harrison called. Rangers poured through the hole into the alley beyond, establishing a security perimeter. The wounded were carried through 3 men with shrapnel injuries from the initial RPG strikes. None critical, but all needing medical attention. Collins helped carry one of the wounded, his fear forgotten in the urgency of saving his brothers. But the insurgents weren't letting them escape easily. Fighters from the southern positions were moving to intercept, trying to cut off the Rangers in the narrow alleys of the industrial district. Alex spotted the movement. 2-4, you have approximately 8 hostiles moving to intercept from your south. Range 200 meters from your position. They're trying to block your extract route. Can you engage? Harrison asked. Negative. They're too close to your position and buildings are blocking my line of sight. You'll have to handle them directly. Roger, all elements hostiles approaching from south. The Rangers set up a hasty ambush in the alley. When the 8 insurgents came around the corner, they walked directly into a wall of precisely aimed rifle fire from prepared positions. Specialist Taylor's size and strength allowed him to hold his M4 rock steady, putting controlled pairs into targets with devastating accuracy. Matthews had positioned himself at a critical angle, catching the insurgents in a crossfire they couldn't escape. The brief firefight lasted 15 seconds. All 8 insurgents went down, and the Rangers continued their withdrawal. While the battle raged in the industrial district, the quick reaction force was mounting up at Faux BB Kalsu. 4 Stryker armored vehicles, each carrying a full squad of infantry prepared to move out. Colonel Wilson personally briefed the QRF commander. You've got 12 Rangers pinned down in Mahmudia. Staff Sergeant Reynolds is providing overwatch from this ridge position, he indicated on the map. Based on radio traffic, she's already eliminated at least a dozen insurgents, maybe more. Your job is to get in there, link up with Harrison's team, and get everyone out safely. Captain David Mitchell, the QRF commander, studied the map. What about Reynolds? How do we extract her? Wilson's jaw tightened. She knows the rendezvous point. Once the Rangers are secure, she'll make her way there for pickup. Alone 2 clicks through hostile territory. That's how she got in, Wilson replied. His voice softened slightly. Reynolds is James Reynolds' daughter. She'll make it. Mitchell nodded, understanding the significance. Captain James Reynolds was a legend. In special operations circles, his actions during Desert Storm had saved an entire platoon at the cost of his own life. We'll get them all out, sir, Mitchell promised. As the strikers roared to life, Wilson returned to the TOC to monitor the operation. On the screens, drone footage showed the Rangers fighting their way through the industrial district, while muzzle flashes from Alex's position indicated she was still engaging targets. The old colonel watched with a mixture of pride and concern. Alex was proving herself beyond question, but the battle was far from over. Alex continued to track the Rangers' movement through her scope, providing cover as they made their way toward the extraction point. From her elevated position, she could see the overall tactical situation developing. The Rangers had successfully broken contact with the main insurgent force, but several smaller groups were attempting to maneuver around them. She eliminated what targets she could, but buildings frequently blocked her line of sight as the patrol moved deeper into the industrial maze. Then she noticed movement on a rooftop 600 meters to her 3 o'clock. A glint of metal caught the sun, the distinctive profile of a Dragunov SVD sniper rifle being set up. Behind it, a figure in desert camouflage adjusted position. Tariq al-Rashidi had spotted her. The veteran sniper wasn't looking at the Rangers. He was looking directly at her ridge position, having calculated her location based on the trajectory of her shots. Now he was setting up to eliminate the American sniper who had destroyed his ambush. Alex had a split-second decision to make: engage al-Rashidi immediately and risk revealing her exact position, or wait for a better shot and risk him firing first. She chose to act. Swinging her rifle toward the rooftop, she quickly acquired her target, made the necessary adjustments for distance and wind, and fired. At the exact same moment, al-Rashidi's rifle flashed. A round snapped past Alex's head, close enough that she felt the pressure wave. Her own shot struck the rooftop where he had been, but the experienced sniper had shifted position immediately after firing. "Damn it," she muttered, scanning for movement. This wasn't an insurgent with an AK. This was a trained professional who understood the deadly game they were playing. For the first time since the battle began, Alex felt a chill of genuine fear. Al-Rashidi knew approximately where she was, and he had the skills to make the next shot count. Worse, every time she fired at another target, she revealed her position. She had to prioritize. The Rangers needed her cover to reach extraction, but al-Rashidi was now the most immediate threat to their survival. If he eliminated her, the patrol would lose their overwatch and be vulnerable to ambush again. Alex keyed her radio. "Ranger 2-4, be advised, I have an enemy sniper with eyes on my position. We'll continue to provide cover, but may need to relocate soon." Harrison's voice came back tight with concern. "Understood, Overwatch. We're 5 minutes from the extraction point. QRF reports they're 10 minutes out." 5 minutes. She needed to keep al-Rashidi occupied and continue eliminating threats to the Rangers for 5 more minutes. Then she could deal with extracting herself from this deadly duel. Alex took a deep breath, remembering her father's advice from long ago. Fear is just information. It tells you the stakes matter. The stakes certainly mattered now. 12 Rangers were counting on her. She refocused her scope on the urban battleground below and continued the fight. The desert sun cast harsh shadows across the industrial district of Mahmudia as bullets tore through concrete and metal. Staff Sergeant Alexandra Reynolds tracked al-Rashidi's movements through her scope, the veteran sniper's tactics revealing his professional training. He wasn't firing wildly like the other insurgents. He was patient, methodical, using deception to draw her out. A trick taught by American advisors during the Iran-Iraq War. Alex had seen it before in intelligence briefs about enemy sniper tactics. Al-Rashidi would expose part of his equipment, deliberately hoping she would fire and reveal her precise location. She wouldn't fall for it. Instead, she resumed her systematic elimination of threats to the retreating Rangers, trusting her camouflage and position selection to keep her hidden. 2 kilometers away, Sergeant First Class Harrison led his men through the maze of alleys toward the extraction point. Blood soaked through the makeshift bandage on his left arm where shrapnel had torn flesh, but he ignored the burning pain. At 61, he'd been wounded enough times to know this one wouldn't kill him. Not today, not when his men needed him. "Taylor, take point," he ordered, gesturing to the youngest ranger. "Matthews rear security. Everyone else maintain intervals. 5 meters between men. The Rangers moved with disciplined precision, despite their injuries and fatigue. Harrison had drilled them relentlessly, knowing that exhaustion was when soldiers made fatal mistakes. Now that training was keeping them alive. At FOB Kalsu, Colonel Wilson watched the drone feed with growing concern. The quick reaction force was still 7 minutes out, and the Rangers were exposed. Worse, he could see what Reynolds couldn't. 3 vehicles loaded with insurgent reinforcements approaching from the east. "Get me Reynolds on comms," he barked to the radio operator. Static crackled over the channel before Alex's voice came through terse and professional. "Overwatch 7. Reynolds, be advised you have 3 technicals inbound from the east, approximately 1 click from your position. Estimate 12 to 15 additional hostiles." Alex swung her scope to the east, spotting the dust clouds from the approaching pickup trucks. Even as she assessed this new threat, a round from al-Rashidi's Dragunov struck a rock inches from her head, sending stone fragments slicing across her cheek. "Copy that," she replied, blood trickling down her face. "I'm also engaged with an enemy sniper. Iraqi army trained. He's got my approximate position." Wilson's voice tightened. "Can you relocate?" Alex scanned the terrain. Moving meant abandoning her perfect overwatch of the Rangers' escape route. Staying meant facing both al-Rashidi and the incoming reinforcements. "Negative," she decided. "Rangers need cover more than I need safety." The colonel's silence spoke volumes before he responded. "Understood, Overwatch 7, QRF ETA 6 minutes. Hold as long as you can, then extract to Rally Point Bravo." "Roger that." Alex returned her attention to the battlefield below. The approaching technicals were her priority now. If they reached the industrial district before the Rangers reached extraction, her friends would be caught in a devastating crossfire. First technical, 780 meters. Driver exposed through the windshield. She led the target slightly, accounting for vehicle movement, and squeezed the trigger. The truck veered sharply right as the driver slumped, crashing into a roadside barrier. Second technical, now alerted, accelerated, while fighters in the bed took cover. Alex shifted aim to the front tire, hitting it at 740 meters. The vehicle swerved violently, overturning in a cloud of dust. The third technical halted at the sight of its companion's destruction. Fighters poured out, seeking cover among roadside buildings, at least 10 men all armed. They'd approach on foot now, more cautiously. Alex keyed her radio. "Ranger 2-4, be advised enemy reinforcements approaching from the east. I've disabled their vehicles, but estimate 10+ fighters on foot, moving your direction. ETA to your position, 5 minutes. Harrison's reply was immediate. "Copy, Overwatch. We're 3 minutes from extraction point. Can you delay them?" "That's a firm. I'll keep them busy." Even as she spoke, Alex felt rather than heard the impact of a round striking the rock beside her position. Al-Rashidi was getting closer with each shot, narrowing down her location through process of elimination. She needed to deal with him soon, but the approaching fighters took priority. She began engaging the dismounted insurgents, forcing them to take cover and slowing their advance. Each shot was deliberate, each target selected to maximize chaos and confusion among the enemy force. When she took out the point man, the others hesitated. When she eliminated a fighter setting up a machine gun, the others abandoned the heavy weapon. But al-Rashidi continued his deadly calculation, each shot coming closer to her position. Harrison's men reached a small courtyard that served as their designated extraction point. The sounds of battle echoed through the concrete canyons of Mahmudia. Sporadic gunfire, distant explosions, and the distinctive crack of Alex's M110, providing their covering fire. "Set up perimeter," Harrison ordered. "Taylor Matthews north side. Collins Ramirez south approach. Everyone else security positions and tend to wounded." Staff Sergeant Ramirez, monitoring the radio, looked up with concern. "Sergeant Reynolds is in trouble. Enemy sniper has her pinned, and reinforcements are closing on her position." Harrison's weathered face hardened. He'd seen too many good soldiers sacrificed to bad decisions. QRF status. 4 minutes out. Harrison made his calculation. They were relatively secure in the extraction point. The wounded needed attention, but none were critical. Reynolds was alone on that ridge, facing multiple threats. "Ramirez, Taylor on me," he decided. "We're moving to support Reynolds. Everyone else stays here to secure the LZ and prepare wounded for evac." Specialist Collins stepped forward, his young face determined despite the fear evident in his eyes. "Sergeant, I'd like to come too." Harrison assessed the young ranger. Collins had been skeptical when Reynolds was assigned to their unit, a quiet resistance that many had shared about women in combat roles. But he'd watched her work today, seen the lives she'd saved with her precision and courage. Grab extra ammo and med supplies. Harrison nodded. Let's move. The crack of al-Rashidi's rifle was followed instantly by a burning sensation across Alex's upper arm. The round hadn't penetrated, but it had torn through her sleeve and carved a furrow in her flesh. The Iraqi sniper had found her. She rolled to a secondary position 3 meters from where she'd been, ignoring the pain blooming in her arm. Blood soaked her sleeve, but the wound wasn't serious enough to compromise her shooting. She'd fought through worse. Al-Rashidi wouldn't miss again. He was too good, too experienced. Alex needed to eliminate him immediately. She scanned the urban terrain, analyzing each possible sniper position with the methodical patience her instructors had drilled into her. Where would she set up if she were hunting herself? High ground, good cover, clear sight lines to her ridge. There, a water tower rising above the northeastern sector of the industrial district. Perfect position, perfect angle. Alex adjusted her scope, focusing on the tower's maintenance platform. For several seconds, she saw nothing. Then, the slightest movement, a shadow shifting against shadow. Al-Rashidi was there, preparing his final killing shot. Alex centered her crosshairs on the shadow calculating range at 840 meters. At this distance, she needed to account for bullet drop, wind drift, even the Earth's rotation. She controlled her breathing, finding the space between heartbeats where maximum stability existed. Inhale, pause, exhale, half, hold. The M110 cracked. Through her scope, Alex watched the shadow jerk violently, then collapse. A rifle, the Dragunov, tumbled from the platform, falling to the ground below. No time for relief. The dismounted insurgents were closing in, using buildings for cover as they approached her position. She'd slowed them, but they'd adapted to her fire, moving in coordinated rushes that minimized their exposure. Alex checked her ammunition. She'd expended over half her rounds already. Enough to handle the approaching fighters, but ammunition wasn't her primary concern. Time was. The insurgents would reach her position before the QRF arrived. She keyed her radio. Ranger 2-4, Overwatch 7, enemy sniper neutralized but ground forces closing on my position. Request fire mission on these coordinates. She transmitted her location data. Harrison's voice came back immediately. Negative, Overwatch. We're moving to your position now. ETA 3 minutes. Alex felt a surge of both gratitude and alarm. Negative 2-4. Maintain position at extraction point. Too dangerous to... Save it, Reynolds. Harrison cut her off. Rangers don't leave Rangers. Keep those bastards busy for 3 more minutes. Alex swallowed hard, refocusing her scope on the approaching insurgents. If Harrison was coming, she needed to ensure they reached her alive. She began engaging targets with increased urgency, prioritizing fighters who showed leadership or coordination. When one insurgent used hand signals to direct others, she eliminated him. When another attempted to set up a firing position with clear lines on her approach path, she put him down. The insurgents responded with increasing firepower, peppering her ridge position with automatic weapons fire. Bullets whined off rocks around her, forcing her to stay low and limiting her shooting angles. Then she heard the distinctive sound of an RPG being launched. The rocket streaked toward her position, impacting 20 meters below where she lay. The explosion sent shockwaves through the ridge, showering her with dirt and stone fragments. The insurgents had bracketed her position and were walking their fire upward. A second RPG launched. This one struck closer, the concussion momentarily dazing her. Ears ringing, vision blurred out. Alex fought to reorient herself. The next rocket would likely find her. Through the dust and confusion, she heard the unmistakable sound of American M4 carbines engaging below. Harrison and his team had arrived, hitting the insurgents from behind. Harrison led his 4-man element up the backside of the ridge, using the terrain to shield their approach from insurgent observation. When they heard the first RPG impact, they accelerated, knowing Reynolds' time was running out. Contact front, Harrison called as they crested a small rise and spotted the insurgent force. 7 fighters remaining, all focused on the ridge where Reynolds was positioned. The Rangers opened fire simultaneously, catching the insurgents in a devastating crossfire. 3 went down immediately. The others turned to engage, but the surprise was complete. Taylor, moving with the speed and power of his football background, flanked right while Ramirez provided covering fire. Collins, proving himself under pressure, executed textbook fire and maneuver alongside Harrison. In 30 seconds of intense fighting, All 7 insurgents were neutralized. Reynolds, Harrison called, scanning the ridgetop where dust still billowed from the RPG impacts. Alex, for a moment, silence answered him. Then a figure emerged from the dust cloud. Alex, Reynolds, rifle in hand, blood streaming from her arm, and a cut on her face, but very much alive. "Cutting it a bit close, aren't you, Sergeant?" She called down, a grim smile crossing her dirt-streaked face. Harrison felt relief flood through him. "Thought you could use some companies up there." "Appreciate the assist," Alex replied, making her way down the rocky slope to join them. "But we need to move. More hostiles could be inbound, and the QRF." The distant sound of heavy vehicles interrupted her. Harrison raised his binoculars, scanning the approach road from Fob Kalsu. "Speak of the devil," he said. "QRF incoming. 4 strikers, 2 minutes out." Alex nodded, suddenly aware of how exhausted she felt. The adrenaline that had sustained her was ebbing, replaced by the aches and pains of hours in a sniper position, followed by intense combat. "You okay?" Collins asked, noticing her pallor beneath the dirt and blood. "I'm good," she assured him, though the wound on her arm was throbbing painfully. "Let's get everyone home." The quick reaction force secured the area with practiced efficiency, establishing a defensive perimeter, while medics attended to the wounded. Alex found herself sitting on the back ramp of a striker, wincing as a combat medic cleaned and bandaged her arm. "You're lucky," the medic told her. "Half an inch deeper, and you'd have serious muscle damage." Alex nodded absently, her mind still processing the battle. By her count, she'd neutralized 27 confirmed targets, including al-Rashidi. With the insurgents Harrison's team had eliminated, plus those taken down during the Rangers' escape from the compound, the enemy had lost over 40 fighters. An unprecedented victory, but all she could think about were the moments when communication had failed, when the ambush nearly succeeded. Harrison approached his own wounds, now properly dressed. At 61, he moved with the stiffness of a man feeling every year of his age, but his eyes remained sharp and alert. "Reynolds," he said, settling beside her on the ramp. "Hell of a day." "Yes, sir," she agreed quietly. "That's 27 confirmed from your position?" "Yes, sir, plus the sniper." Harrison whistled softly. "In 23 minutes. That's a Ranger record, you know. Probably an Army record." Alex shrugged. "Just doing my job." The older Ranger studied her for a moment. "That's not how the rest of us see it. You saved 12 lives today, mine included. We walked into that ambush blind, and you pulled us out." "We still have a problem," Alex said, lowering her voice. "That ambush was too well organized, too perfectly timed. They knew exactly where we'd be and when." Harrison's expression darkened. "You think we have a leak?" "I know we do. The question is, how high up does it go?" Before Harrison could respond, Colonel Wilson approached, having arrived with the QRF. Despite the dust and chaos, his uniform remained impeccable, his bearing ramrod straight. At 62, Nathaniel Wilson was a living connection to an older generation of warriors, men who had fought in the shadows of the Cold War and witnessed the transformation of modern warfare. "Staff Sergeant Reynolds," he said, his voice carrying the gravitas of command. "Walk with me a moment." Alex stood, ignoring the protest from her injured arm, and followed Wilson away from the vehicles. When they were out of earshot, the colonel turned to face her. "Your father would be proud," he said simply. The words hit Alex with unexpected force. Wilson had served with her father, had been there the day he died, saving his unit in Desert Storm. Coming from him, this wasn't empty praise. "Thank you, sir," she managed, fighting the sudden tightness in her throat. "I received the preliminary after-action reports while en route," Wilson continued. 27 confirmed kills from Overwatch position. Expert target prioritization. Continued mission execution while wounded and under direct fire." He paused. "And you identified Tariq al-Rashidi before neutralizing him?" Alex nodded. "Yes, sir, and there's something else you should know. This wasn't random. Someone compromised our operational security. The insurgents were waiting for us." Wilson's expression didn't change, but something hardened in his eyes. "I've had the same thought, too well coordinated, too precise." He glanced back toward the gathering of soldiers and vehicles. "This stays between us for now. I'll initiate a compartmented investigation when we return to base." "Sir, if there's a leak." "Then we'll find it," Wilson assured her on. "But right now, let's focus on getting everyone home safely. There will be time for investigations later." The convoy of strikers rolled into Fob Kalsu 3 hours later. dust-covered and battle-worn, but intact. All 12 Rangers from Harris's patrol had survived, though 5 bore injuries of varying severity. None were life-threatening, a miracle given the scale of the ambush they'd faced. Medical personnel rushed forward to receive the wounded, transferring them to the base hospital for proper treatment. Alex's arm had been bandaged in the field, but a doctor insisted on examining it properly, cleaning the wound again, and applying proper stitches. "You're lucky," the doctor told her, echoing the field medic's assessment. "Another centimeter, and this would have hit your brachial artery. You'd have bled out in minutes." Alex nodded, barely listening. Her mind was racing, analyzing the day's events, trying to piece together who might have compromised their mission. The precision of the ambush, the presence of al-Rashidi, none of it was coincidental. After being released from medical, Alex headed to the debriefing room where Harrison and the other Rangers were already assembled. As she entered, conversation stopped, and all eyes turned to her. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Harrison stood. "Tension," he called, and every Ranger in the room rose to their feet. Alex halted, surprised by the gesture. These were men she'd worked alongside for months, who had initially regarded her with skepticism or outright resistance. Now they stood at attention, faces solemn with respect. "At ease," she said, uncomfortable with the attention. The Rangers relaxed but remained standing until she took a seat. Harrison nodded to her with quiet acknowledgement before returning to the debriefing. For the next 2 hours, they methodically reviewed every aspect of the operation. The intelligence that led them to Mahmudia, the patrol route, the ambush, and their extraction. Each Ranger provided their perspective, building a comprehensive picture of what had transpired. When it was Alex's turn, she detailed her observations from Overwatch position, describing the insurgents' preparations and her attempts to warn the patrol. "The radio interference was unusual," she noted. "We've operated in that area before without similar communication problems." Harrison nodded grimly, almost as if someone was jamming our frequencies. The implication hung heavy in the air. Electronic warfare capabilities weren't common among insurgent groups. That suggested outside support, possibly from a state actor or former military personnel with advanced training. As the debriefing concluded, Colonel Wilson entered the room. All present stood at attention. "As you were," he said, moving to the front of the room. His gaze swept across the assembled Rangers, lingering briefly on Alex before addressing the group. "Today you all faced a professionally executed ambush designed to eliminate your entire patrol. That you're standing here now is testament to your training, your courage, and your refusal to leave anyone behind." He paused. "It's also thanks to the extraordinary actions of Staff Sergeant Reynolds, whose precision fire from Overwatch position broke the enemy's assault and enabled your extraction." Wilson turned to Alex. "Staff Sergeant Reynolds, your actions today exemplify the highest traditions of the Rangers and the United States Army. 27 confirmed enemy KIA from your position alone, including a high-value target sniper. You maintained your mission focus despite being wounded and directly targeted. I'm recommending you for the Bronze Star with Valor device." A murmur of approval ran through the assembled Rangers. Alex felt a flush of pride mingled with embarrassment at being singled out. "Thank you, sir," she said simply. "But I was just doing my job as their Overwatch." "Your job is being a sniper," Wilson replied firmly. "What you did today went far beyond that. You demonstrated exactly the kind of warrior ethos we need in the regiment." As the briefing concluded, the Rangers filed out, many pausing to thank Alex personally or offer a respectful nod. Collins, the young specialist, who had initially been most skeptical of her abilities, approached last. "Staff Sergeant," he said, his voice low and serious, "I owe you an apology." Alex raised an eyebrow. "For what?" "When you joined the unit," he admitted, "I had doubts. Thought maybe standards had been lowered. I was wrong." He extended his hand. "Thank you for saving our lives today." Alex shook his hand, recognizing the significance of the gesture. "You did well out there yourself, Collins, especially coming back up that ridge for extraction." The young Ranger's face brightened at the praise. "Learned it from the best, ma'am." As Collins left, Harrison approached, moving stiffly from his injuries. "You've made some converts today," he observed. "Never should have been necessary," Alex replied, "but I'll take it." Harrison studied her thoughtfully. "Your father faced the same resistance, you know, when he first joined Special Forces. Some men couldn't see past his age, thought at 40 he was too old for the unit. Then he saved an entire team during a training exercise, and suddenly the question stopped. Alex smiled slightly. Her father had never shared that story. Seems like the Reynolds family tradition. Prove yourself under fire. Speaking of which, Harrison said, his voice dropping to ensure privacy, we need to discuss what happened out there. The intelligence failure, the jamming, the precision of that ambush. Someone betrayed us, Alex agreed quietly. But who and why target a routine reconnaissance patrol? Harrison's weathered face showed the calculation of a man who had survived decades in combat zones by trusting his instincts. Unless the recon wasn't the target, Alex finished his thought. We were pressure. The implications settled between them like a physical weight. If someone had compromised their mission, specifically to eliminate Harrison's patrol and their sniper overwatch, this wasn't just a tactical threat, it was personal. Get some rest, Harrison advised. Tomorrow we start asking hard questions. In a small, nondescript room at the eastern edge of FOB Kalsu, Colonel Wilson sat alone reviewing the day's intelligence reports. The rhythmic tapping of his fingers on the desk betrayed his agitation despite his composed exterior. A knock at the door interrupted his thoughts. Major Lisa Hendricks entered carrying a secure tablet. Signal intelligence report, sir, she said, handing him the device. You were right. We detected sophisticated jamming equipment operating in Mahmudia during the ambush timeframe, not something in the standard insurgent toolkit. Wilson scanned the report, his expression hardening. Origin, undetermined, Hendricks replied, but the equipment signatures match systems we've seen used by former Republican Guard units. Al-Shamari, Wilson muttered. There's more, sir, Hendricks continued. We intercepted a partial transmission after the QRF extraction. English language military terminology referencing the female sniper and consequences of failure. She paused. Sir, it sounds like Reynolds was the primary target. Wilson set down the tablet, his mind racing through implications and scenarios, none of them good. Increase security protocols immediately, he ordered. Restrict operational planning to need-to-know basis only, and get me everything we have on Tariq al-Rashidi's associates and known locations. You think there will be another attempt? Wilson thought of James Reynolds, of the promise he'd made to his dying friend 20 years earlier to watch over his daughter. He thought of Alex's remarkable skill and the threat she clearly posed to someone powerful enough to orchestrate today's ambush. I know there will, he said grimly, and next time they'll send someone worse than al-Rashidi. As darkness fell over Phoebe Kalsu, Alex Reynolds lay on her bunk, physically exhausted but mentally alert. The events of the day played through her mind in vivid detail. The insurgents setting their trap, the desperate radio calls from Harrison's patrol, the mechanical precision with which she'd engaged targets, and the deadly duel with al-Rashidi. 27 confirmed kills in 23 minutes. A Ranger record, Harrison had said. Perhaps an Army record, numbers that would make headlines back home, that would become part of Ranger lore. But all Alex could think about was the moment she'd spotted al-Rashidi on that water tower, the split second when two snipers locked in a life-or-death calculation. In that moment, she'd felt a strange connection to her father, as if his spirit guided her aim. She reached under her pillow, withdrawing a worn photograph. Her father in desert camouflage, arm around her 5-year-old self, the Iraqi sun setting behind them. His last deployment, the last time she saw him alive. I did good today, Dad, she whispered to the fading image. I kept them safe. As sleep finally claimed her, Alex didn't know that across the base, Colonel Wilson was examining intelligence reports that suggested today's battle was merely the opening move in a much larger, deadlier game. One that had begun years ago in the burning oil fields of Kuwait when Captain James Reynolds had sacrificed his life to save his unit. A game that now centered on his daughter, the Ranger sniper, who had just demonstrated exactly why someone powerful wanted her eliminated. Morning light filtered through the dusty windows of Phoebe Kalsu's command center as Colonel Wilson addressed the gathered officers. His silver hair caught the sun, creating a halo effect that enhanced his authoritative presence. At the back of the room, Alex Reynolds stood quietly, her arm in a fresh bandage, dark circles beneath her eyes, testifying to a restless night. The insurgent force Staff Sergeant Reynolds engaged yesterday wasn't random, Wilson stated, his voice cutting through the room with practiced command. Intelligence confirms they were led by Tariq al-Rashidi, a former Iraqi army sniper trained by our own advisors in the 1980s. His presence, along with sophisticated communications jamming equipment, suggests this operation was specifically designed to eliminate Harrison's patrol. Captain Mitchell of the QRF frowned. With respect, sir, why target a routine reconnaissance mission? Wilson's gaze shifted briefly to Alex before he answered. Because routine creates predictability. Predictability creates vulnerability. The implication was clear to everyone in the room. Someone had studied their patterns, identified weaknesses, and exploited them with professional precision. The only reason they weren't mourning 12 dead Rangers was standing quietly at the back wall. Effective immediately, all patrol patterns will be randomized. Communications protocols will shift to alternate frequencies, and operational details will be compartmentalized. Wilson's tone left no room for discussion. Dismissed. As the officers filed out, Wilson motioned for Alex to remain. When they were alone, his professional demeanor softened slightly. "You look like hell, Reynolds." Alex managed a tired smile. "Thank you, sir. I feel appropriately." "Sleep didn't come easy." "No, sir. Too many questions." She hesitated, then pressed forward. "Colonel, that ambush wasn't just well executed, it was personal. The insurgents had our exact patrol route, our communications frequencies, our rest stop location. That's not intelligence you get from casual observation." Wilson nodded grimly. "I've initiated a security review. Until we identify the source of the leak, we operate under the assumption that our communications are compromised." He paused. "There's something else you should know. SIGINT intercepted partial communications after the engagement. English language military terminology." Alex's expression hardened. "American accent. Unclear. But they specifically referenced the female sniper and expressed disappointment at the operation's failure." The implications settled over Alex like a physical weight. 27 confirmed kills in 23 minutes hadn't just set a record. It had painted a target on her back. "You think they'll try again?" she said. It wasn't a question. "I know they will," Wilson replied, "which is why, effective immediately, you're being reassigned to base security operations." Alex straightened, indignation flashing across her face. "Sir, with respect, my team needs me. If there's going to be another attempt, then I need you alive to help identify who's behind it." Wilson cut her off. "This isn't punishment, Reynolds, it's protection. Someone with serious resources wants you eliminated, and I promised your father I'd look after you." At the mention of her father, Alex's protest died in her throat. Wilson had served with James Reynolds in Desert Storm, had been there when he sacrificed himself to save his unit. 2 days. Wilson continued, his tone softening. "Give me 2 days to follow some intelligence leads. Then we reassess." Alex nodded reluctantly. "Yes, sir." "Good. Now get some rest. That's an order." Alex's footsteps echoed through the quiet corridors of the base hospital as she made her rounds, checking on the wounded Rangers from yesterday's ambush. Though technically restricted to base security duties, she'd made visiting her teammates a daily priority. In the third room, she found Specialist Collins sitting up in bed, his leg elevated in a cast where shrapnel had torn through muscle and chipped bone. His face brightened when he saw her. "Staff Sergeant Reynolds," he greeted her. "Heard you got stuck with babysitting duty while the rest of us enjoy vacation." Alex smiled, taking a seat beside his bed. The young ranger who had once questioned her abilities now looked at her with unabashed respect. "Something like that. How's the leg?" "Doc says I'll be back to full duty in 6 weeks," Collins replied, "just in time for my contract to end." He hesitated, then added, "I'm re-enlisting, by the way, after yesterday. Seeing what this unit can do, what you did for us. I want to be part of that." Alex felt a surge of unexpected emotion. This was why she joined the Rangers. Not for records or recognition, but to be part of something greater than herself. A brotherhood, and now slowly a sisterhood, of warriors who lived by a code older than the nation they served. "The regiment will be lucky to keep you," she said sincerely. Collins lowered his voice. "Word around base is someone sold us out." That true, Alex maintained a neutral expression despite her surprise. News traveled fast in the tight-knit Ranger community. "There are questions being investigated." "Had to be," Collins persisted. "That ambush was too perfect. 32 insurgents in exactly the right positions, communications jammed at the critical moment." His eyes narrowed. "Somebody wanted us dead." Before Alex could respond, a commotion in the hallway caught their attention. Raised voices, footsteps approaching rapidly. Instinctively, Alex moved toward the door, positioning herself between the potential threat and her wounded teammate. Sergeant First Class Harrison appeared in the doorway, his weathered face tight with controlled anger. Behind him stood Major Lisa Hendricks, Wilson's intelligence officer. "Reynolds," Harrison said without preamble, "we need to move. Now." Alex read the urgency in his expression. "What's happened?" "Colonel Wilson's convoy was hit 20 minutes ago." Hendricks explained, her professional demeanor barely containing her distress. "IED followed by a complex ambush outside the western perimeter. 4 KIA, 3 wounded." Alex felt her blood turn cold. "The colonel, so..." Harrison's jaw tightened. "Missing, presumed captured." The implications struck like physical blows. Wilson was the senior officer on base, privy to all operational details and intelligence. In enemy hands, the damage could be catastrophic. But there was something more, something deeply personal. Wilson had been her father's friend, her mentor, the man who'd fought for her acceptance into Ranger School when others had doubted. "Rescue operation?" Alex asked, already moving toward the door. "Being organized now," Hendricks confirmed. "Captain Mitchell is assembling a QRF, but we have limited intelligence on where they've taken the colonel." Harrison's expression suggested there was more. "Captain wants you on the rescue team," he said to Alex. "Specifically requested your sniper skills." Alex nodded, understanding immediately. In hostage rescue operations, precision fire support could mean the difference between success and tragedy. "I'll gear up. Meet you at the TOC in 10. As she turned to leave, Collins called out from his bed. "Staff Sergeant!" Alex paused, looking back at the young ranger. "Make them pay," he said simply. She nodded once, then disappeared into the corridor. The Tactical Operations Center hummed with controlled urgency as Captain Mitchell briefed the assembled rescue team. Maps of the surrounding area were spread across the central table, surveillance drone footage projected on screens along the wall. "Latest intelligence puts Colonel Wilson here." Mitchell indicated a compound on the outskirts of a small village 15 kilometers northwest of the base. "Drone footage confirms increased activity consistent with a high-value captive. Multiple armed sentries vehicles coming and going." Alex studied the compound layout with a sniper's eye, already identifying potential overwatch positions, angles of fire, and obstacles. The structure was defensible: concrete walls, limited access points, clear fields of fire surrounding it. "Conventional assault would be problematic," she observed. "Those walls give them too much protection, and there's minimal cover on the approach." Mitchell nodded. "That's why we're not going conventional. This is a precision operation. Small team surgical insertion, extract the package, then immediate evacuation." He outlined the plan with efficiency born from years of special operations experience. 2 four-man teams would approach from separate directions under cover of darkness. Alex would establish an overwatch position here. He indicated a ridge with clear sight lines to the compound, to provide precision fire support and elimination of sentries. "Our window is narrow," Mitchell emphasized. "Intelligence suggests they plan to move the colonel at dawn to a more secure location, possibly across the border. We go in at 0200 hours. As the briefing concluded, Harrison pulled Alex aside. Despite being technically off the active duty roster due to his injuries, the veteran ranger had insisted on joining the operation. No one had the heart to refuse him. "Something's not right about this," he murmured, keeping his voice low. The timing. Wilson initiates a security review, and suddenly his convoy gets hit. Too convenient. Alex had been thinking the same thing. "You think the leak is inside the fob?" "Has to be, which means this rescue operation could be compromised before we even leave the wire." The implication was clear. Someone on the base was feeding information to the enemy, and they had no way of knowing who to trust. "We stick to the plan," Alex decided, "but we add contingencies only we know about. Alternate extraction points, backup communication channels." Harrison nodded approval. "Like your father always said, trust but verify," Alex finished. It had been one of James Reynolds' favorite maxims, learned during the Cold War and applied throughout his career. As they moved to prepare their equipment, Alex felt the weight of responsibility settling across her shoulders. This wasn't just another mission. This was personal. For her, for Harrison, for everyone who had served under Wilson's command. More than that, it was a chance to identify who had betrayed them, who had orchestrated the ambush that nearly wiped out her Ranger patrol. She checked her M110 sniper rifle with methodical precision, the familiar routine calming her racing thoughts. Each round was inspected individually before being loaded into magazines. Her scope was clean, zeroed, and secured. Every piece of equipment in her pack had a purpose, a specific role in the mission to come. Across the room, Harrison watched her with understanding. He'd seen that focused intensity before, in her father decades earlier, preparing for the mission from which he never returned. Darkness shrouded the rescue team as they moved through the Iraqi countryside. 3 Humvees transported them to within 2 kilometers of the target, where they continued on foot. Alex separated from the main element, accompanied by a single ranger who would serve as her spotter, heading for the overwatch position identified during mission planning. The night was clear stars, providing just enough illumination to navigate by. Alex moved with the silent efficiency that had become second nature over years of operations, her footfalls making no sound on the rocky soil. Beside her, Specialist Taylor matched her pace, carrying additional ammunition and communications equipment. They reached the designated ridge 30 minutes ahead of schedule, giving Alex ample time to establish her position. She selected a natural depression that offered both concealment and a stable firing platform, laying out her equipment with practiced precision. "Set up the observation post 10 meters back," she instructed Taylor quietly. "I want communications established with both assault teams and a clear fallback route identified." As Taylor moved to comply, Alex settled behind her rifle, scanning the target compound through her night vision scope. The green-tinted view revealed 6 sentries patrolling the perimeter, armed with AK-47s and moving in predictable patterns. She noted their positions, their timing, committing the details to memory. "I count 6 external security personnel," she reported via secure radio. "Standard patrol pattern, 2-man teams, 15-minute rotation." Captain Mitchell's voice came back, clipped and professional. "Copy that. Internal security estimate." Alex studied the building's windows, noting movement inside. "At least 4 additional personnel visible through windows. Unknown number in areas without direct line of sight." "Understood. Assault teams are in position, awaiting your signal to proceed." Alex took a deep breath, centering herself for what was to come. In the next few minutes, she would eliminate the external security with precision fire, creating the window for the assault teams to breach the compound. "Taylor," she called softly to her spotter, "range to nearest sentry position." 485 meters to position 1, he confirmed using his rangefinder. "Wind negligible, less than 2 km from the southwest." Alex made minor adjustments to her scope, compensating for distance and atmospheric conditions. "All elements, this is Overwatch 7, preparing to engage. Assault teams stand by." She focused on the first target, a sentry standing near the main entrance, his rifle held casually across his chest. His partner had just rounded the corner of the building, temporarily out of sight. Perfect timing. Inhale, pause, partial exhale, hold. The M110 coughed softly, the suppressor reducing its report to a muted crack. Through her scope, Alex watched the sentry collapse without a sound. "Target 1 down," Taylor confirmed. Alex was already shifting to the second sentry, who remained unaware of his partner's fate. The second shot was equally precise, equally fatal. "Target 2 down." She continued, methodically eliminating the external security with surgical precision. 6 shots, 6 confirmed kills in under 2 minutes. None had time to radio an alarm or alert the interior guards. "All external security neutralized," Alex reported. "Assault teams clear to move." Mitchell's voice came back immediately. "Moving now. Maintain overwatch and engage any emerging threats." Through her scope, Alex watched as the 2 4-man teams converged on the compound from opposite directions. They moved with the coordinated precision that made Rangers legendary, covering each other's advance, maintaining security as they approached the walls. Team 1 reached the main entrance, the point man placing a small breaching charge on the lock. Team 2 positioned themselves at a side door, ready to create a secondary entry point. The synchronized breach would divide the defenders' attention, creating confusion in those critical first seconds. "Breach in 3, 2, 1, execute," Mitchell ordered. Twin explosions shattered the night silence as both doors blew inward. The assault teams poured through the openings, weapons up, moving with practiced efficiency. From her overwatch position, Alex could hear the muffled sounds of gunfire as the Rangers engaged interior security forces. "Contact front," Mitchell's voice reported through the radio. "2 tangos down, moving to central room." Alex maintained her vigilance, scanning for any external threats that might compromise the operation. The mission was proceeding according to plan until a flicker of movement caught her attention. 300 meters south of the compound, a vehicle was approaching rapidly, lights off, moving with purpose. Through her scope, Alex could make out at least four armed figures inside. "Be advised, vehicle approaching from the south," she reported urgently. "4+ armed individuals, ETA 30 seconds to your position." "Copy that," Mitchell replied, background noise indicating ongoing clearing operations. "Engage at your discretion." Alex swung her rifle toward the approaching vehicle, calculating lead distance for a moving target. The truck was traveling at approximately 30 miles per hour, requiring precise timing. She aimed for the engine block, squeezing the trigger as the crosshairs settled on the target. The round struck with pinpoint accuracy, steam immediately billowing from the damaged radiator. The vehicle swerved, slowing but still advancing. Alex fired again, this time targeting the front tire. The vehicle veered sharply as the tire blew out, coming to a stop approximately 200 meters from the compound. The occupants bailed out, seeking cover behind the disabled truck. "Vehicle disabled," Alex reported. "4 personnel taking cover 200 meters south of your position." "Roger that," Mitchell responded. "We've secured the primary target. Preparing for extraction. ETA 2 minutes." Alex kept the armed insurgents pinned with precision fire, not necessarily hitting them, but placing rounds close enough to keep them from advancing on the compound. Through her scope, she saw the assault teams emerging from the building, a figure supported between 2 rangers. Colonel Wilson, apparently injured but alive. "Extraction team is moving," she informed Taylor. "Prepare to displace to Rally Point Alpha." As she spoke, a flash of movement in her peripheral vision caused her to swing her rifle sharply right. A lone figure was advancing up the backside of their ridge position, moving with the stealth and purpose of a trained operator. "Contact rear," she hissed to Taylor. "Single individual approaching R6. Taylor immediately shifted position, bringing his M4 to bear on the approaching threat. But before he could engage, the figure raised his hands in the universal gesture of surrender. "Friendly! Friendly!" a familiar voice called softly. Alex kept her weapon trained on the figure as he approached. "Identify yourself." "Ramirez, Staff Sergeant Vincent. Harrison sent me. We need to move now." Alex recognized the weapons squad leader from Harrison's patrol, but caution kept her rifle steady. "Authentication code, Desert Shield 347, Ramirez replied without hesitation, using the day's verification protocol. Alex lowered her weapon slightly. "What's the situation, Sergeant?" "Compromise," Ramirez said grimly. "QRF radio traffic was intercepted. Insurgent reinforcements inbound from multiple directions. Harrison diverted to alternate extraction point Charlie. Sent me to get you." Alex processed this with the rapid assessment of a combat veteran. The primary plan was compromised, just as Harrison had feared. The leak within the fob had struck again. "Taylor, collapse the OP," she ordered. "We're moving to extraction point Charlie." As they gathered their equipment with practiced efficiency, Alex maintained awareness of their surroundings. The rescue team was now clear of the compound, moving toward their planned extraction point, unaware they were heading into potential ambush. "We need to warn Mitchell," she said, reaching for her radio. Ramirez shook his head. "Comms are compromised. Harrison sent runners to intercept the main element. Our priority is reaching the secondary extraction point." Alex hesitated, torn between duty to the mission and trust in Harrison's judgment. The veteran ranger had survived decades of combat through instinct and experience. If he diverted to the alternate extraction point, he had good reason. "Lead the way," she decided, "but we move fast." The three rangers moved through the darkness with silent urgency, Ramirez taking point with Taylor in the middle, and Alex providing rear security. They avoided the main trails, instead following a winding path through rocky terrain that offered concealment at the cost of speed. "How did Harrison know the operation was compromised?" Alex asked as they paused briefly to orient themselves. "One of our embedded interpreters overheard a radio transmission," Ramirez explained. "Insurgents discussing American movement patterns that matched our extraction plan exactly." Alex's jaw tightened. Further confirmation that someone inside the fob was feeding information to the enemy. Someone with access to operational details, mission planning, and patrol routes. "Any indication who's behind this?" she pressed. Ramirez shook his head. "Nothing concrete, but Harrison said to tell you it goes back to Desert Storm. The reference to her father's final deployment sent a chill through Alex. What connection could exist between an ambush in Iraq nearly 2 decades ago and the current situation? Before she could pursue the thought, the distinct crack of gunfire erupted in the distance, from the direction of the primary extraction point. Ambush, Taylor said grimly. Alex made an instant calculation. Mitchell's team is walking into a trap. We need to provide support. Negative, Ramirez countered. Harrison's orders were explicit. Proceed to extraction point, Charlie, regardless of contact elsewhere. The colonel specifically wanted you clear of the main element. The implication was clear. Colonel Wilson, even injured and just rescued, was worried about Alex's safety. He believed she was the primary target. The sound of helicopter rotors reached them. Multiple aircraft approaching from the direction of Fobui B. Kalsu. That's our extraction, Ramirez confirmed, checking his watch. 3 minutes to landing zone. They resumed their movement, pushing harder now with extraction imminent. As they crested a small rise, the landing zone came into view, a flat area with minimal vegetation suitable for helicopter operations. Harrison was already there with 4 other Rangers establishing a security perimeter. The veteran Ranger nodded as they approached, his weathered face showing relief at their arrival. Glad you made it. Mitchell's team ran into trouble. We heard, Alex confirmed. Status. They're fighting through it. QRF is inbound to support. Harrison's expression was grim. Colonel Wilson wants to speak with you immediately. He led her to where Wilson sat propped against a rock, his uniform torn and bloodied. The colonel's face was bruised, one eye swollen shut, but his good eye focused on Alex with intensity. Reynolds, he greeted, her voice raspy but strong. Good work on the overwatch. Thank you, sir, she replied, kneeling beside him. How badly are you hurt? I've had worse, Wilson dismissed. Listen carefully. During my captivity, I learned something critical. The ambushes, the compromised operations, they're all connected to Operation Sandstorm from Desert Storm. Alex felt her breath catch. Operation Sandstorm had been her father's final mission, the operation that cost him his life while saving his unit. What's the connection, sir? Wilson glanced around, ensuring they wouldn't be overheard. The insurgent commander who captured me was Hamid al-Shamari. He recognized me from Desert Storm, said he'd been waiting years for revenge against the Americans who destroyed his career in the Republican Guard. What does that have to do with our current situation? Al-Shamari wasn't working alone, Wilson continued urgently. He mentioned an American partner, someone who provided him with operational details, patrol routes, communications frequencies. The colonel's good eye fixed on Alex with intensity. Someone who was there in Desert Storm when your father died. The implication struck Alex with physical force. Someone who had served with her father, who had been present during Operation Sandstorm, was now betraying American forces to the enemy. A traitor who had operated undetected for nearly 2 decades. Did he give you a name? She asked, her voice tight. Wilson shook his head. No specific name, but he said something that might help identify them. Said his American partner still carries the scar from James Reynolds' last stand. The sound of approaching helicopters grew louder, 2 Blackhawks appearing as dark shapes against the night sky. Harrison approached, signaling it was time to move. We'll continue this discussion back at base, Wilson said, allowing 2 Rangers to help him to his feet. Trust no one until we identify the source of the leak. As they moved toward the landing zone, Alex's mind raced with implications. Someone who had served with her father, who bore a scar from his final mission, had betrayed everything the Rangers stood for. The same person who had orchestrated the ambush that nearly killed Harrison's patrol. The same person who had arranged Wilson's kidnapping. The helicopters touched down rotors, whipping dust across the landing zone. The Rangers moved toward them in practice formation, maintaining security until everyone was aboard. As Alex helped Wilson into the lead aircraft, she scanned the horizon, a sense of unfinished business weighing on her. Whoever the traitor was, they were still out there, still operating, still dangerous. And now they knew that she knew. 6 months later, Alex stood at attention in the auditorium at Fort Benning, Georgia. Her dress uniform was immaculate, ribbons and badges perfectly aligned across her chest. Among them, newly added, was the Bronze Star with Valor device. The citation was read aloud to the assembled unit. For heroic achievement during combat operations against enemy forces in Iraq. Staff Sergeant Alexandra Reynolds distinguished herself through exceptional courage and skill when a Ranger patrol was ambushed by a numerically superior enemy force in the city of Mahmudia. From an overwatch position on an exposed ridge under direct enemy fire, Staff Sergeant Reynolds engaged 32 enemy fighters over a sustained 23-minute engagement, achieving 38 confirmed kills through precise long-range fire, breaking the ambush through superior marksmanship and tactical skill. Her actions while under direct enemy fire from multiple positions directly saved the lives of 12 Rangers and demonstrated extraordinary valor in the face of overwhelming odds. Colonel Wilson, now recovered from his injuries, pinned the medal to her chest. Though he used a cane to support himself, his bearing remained proud and commanding. "Your father would be proud," he said quietly for her ears only. The ceremony concluded with the traditional Ranger toast, the assembled soldiers raising glasses in honor of their comrades, both present and fallen. Alex found herself surrounded by the men she'd saved that day in Mahmudia, Harrison, Matthews, Taylor, Collins, each offering personal congratulations and thanks. Later, as the formal reception wound down, Wilson drew her aside to a quiet corner of the hall. "The investigation continues," he informed, her voice low, despite the privacy. "We've narrowed the list of suspects, but haven't yet identified the traitor conclusively." Alex nodded, disappointment warring with determination. "They've gone quiet since the rescue operation." "They're being cautious," Wilson agreed. "But people like that can't stay hidden forever. Eventually, they'll make a mistake." "And we'll be waiting," Alex finished. Wilson studied her with the thoughtful assessment of a commander evaluating a soldier's potential. "I'm recommending you for accelerated promotion to Sergeant First Class, an eventual assignment as a senior sniper instructor and team leader." Alex raised an eyebrow in surprise. "Sir, the regiment needs operators with your level of expertise, not just in the field, but developing the next generation of snipers," Wilson explained. "You have the technical skills, the combat experience, and the teaching ability to make a real difference in how we train our people." 4 weeks later, Alex found herself back in the Iraqi desert on another ridge overlooking another city. But this time, she wasn't alone. Private First Class Isaiah Wright, 21, from Louisiana, newly qualified as a Ranger sniper, was positioned beside her with his own M110, learning the practical application of skills he'd only practiced on training ranges. They were providing overwatch for a patrol moving through the outskirts of Ramadi, and Alex was teaching Wright to read terrain spot patterns, identify threats before they materialized into active danger. Wright was eager, talented, but inexperienced. Exactly the kind of young sniper who needed combat mentorship to develop into an effective operator. "What do you see?" Alex asked quietly, both of them scanning through their scopes in the early morning light. "I see the patrol moving up Route Michigan," Wright answered, his Louisiana drawl soft with concentration. "I see civilians on the street going about their morning routines. Some vehicle traffic. Pattern looks normal for this time of day." "Look closer," Alex instructed. "Third building on the left, second floor window facing the street." Wright adjusted his scope, studying the window carefully. "I see. Wait, is that curtain moving?" "There's no wind today and the window's closed. Someone's behind it." "Excellent catch," Alex praised. "Someone's watching the patrol from concealment. Could be innocent civilian curiosity. Could be a spotter for an attack." "What do we do?" Wright thought, carefully remembering his training. "Monitor but don't engage yet. Mark the position. Watch for additional indicators of hostile intent. Maintain awareness." "Correct. Good judgment. Patience is as important as precision in this job. We don't shoot unless we have clear hostile intent." For the next hour, Alex walked Wright through practical observation techniques, how to differentiate between normal civilian activity and tactical preparation, how to spot weapons being concealed under clothing, how to identify insurgent communication patterns and pre-attack positioning, how to read body language and movement that indicated hostile intent. When a suspicious vehicle approached the patrol, Wright spotted it first. "Vehicle approaching from the south," he reported, his voice steady despite the adrenaline. "Behavior is anomalous. Speed is too slow for normal traffic. Occupants are conducting visual surveillance of the patrol. Could be pre-attack reconnaissance." "Good observation," Alex confirmed. "Range at 485 meters. Wind 3 miles right to left based on the dust patterns." "What's your call on engagement?" Wright thought, carefully weighing the factors. "Monitor but don't engage yet. Could still be innocent civilians being cautious around American forces. Wait for positive threat indicators before committing to lethal force. Correct decision. Alex nodded. Patience and good judgment. We have rules of engagement for a reason. We need positive identification of hostile intent before we shoot. Keep tracking them. The vehicle passed the patrol without incident. It had been suspicious but ultimately non-threatening. Just nervous civilians being careful around armed soldiers. Wright learned a valuable lesson. Not every anomaly required engagement and good judgment, meant knowing when not to shoot. But 20 minutes later, when two men on a rooftop began setting up what was clearly an RPG-7 rocket launcher, Wright identified them immediately. Contact rooftop position 610 meters. Two men with confirmed RPG-7. They're preparing to fire on our patrol. Good identification, Wickwit confirmed. You have authorization to engage. You have the shot when ready. Wright controlled his breathing exactly as Alex had taught him, calculated his hold for distance and wind, and fired. Through her scope, Alex watched the first man, the gunner, jerk backward and fall from the rooftop. Wright transitioned smoothly to the second target, the loader, and fired again. Both threats were neutralized before they could fire a single rocket at the patrol below. Both hits confirmed, Alex said. Excellent shooting. You just saved American lives. How do you feel? Wright was breathing hard from adrenaline, his hands shaking slightly from the intensity of his first combat engagement, but his face showed determination and confidence. Like I just made a real difference. Like the training was worth it. It was, and you did, Alex assured him. 9 Rangers down in that patrol. 9 of our brothers are alive right now because you identified a threat and neutralized it before it could hurt them. That's what this job is about. Not glory or medals or body counts, just protecting our teammates and making sure they go home to their families. She paused, seeing in the young man the same potential she'd recognized in herself years ago. You did well today, Wright? Trust your training, trust your judgment, and you'll be a damn good sniper. As they continued their Overwatch mission, Alex reflected on the path that had brought her here. From a young woman determined to honor her father's legacy to a combat-proven warrior now passing those skills to the next generation. The traitor from Desert Storm remained at large, a shadow from the past that would eventually need to be confronted. But today was about something more immediate and perhaps more important, ensuring the future of the regiment through the sniper she was training. Being a sniper wasn't about the longest shot or the highest body count or the medals on your chest, she'd explained to each new class of aspiring snipers. It was about being the person your teammates trust to make the difference when everything's on the line. It's about the discipline to stay calm when others are panicking, the skill to be precise when others are spraying bullets and hoping for hits, and the dedication to protect your brothers and sisters no matter what the odds look like on paper. And when students would ask about the fear of being outnumbered, of being under fire yourself, of having lives depending on your precision, she'd smile slightly and say what she always said, fear is just information. It tells you the stakes are high and your job matters. You acknowledge it. You respect it. Then you set it aside and focus on what you can control. Your breathing, your aim, your trigger, pull, your target selection. Because somewhere down in that valley or that city or that compound, Rangers are fighting for their lives and they're counting on you to be absolutely perfect when it matters most. She glanced at Wright, seeing the future of the regiment in his determined young face. That's not pressure, she concluded. That's purpose.